Just make sure you don't pick any of my tax returns that are on that.
Do you want it in this, like, what's this right here, auto presentation? Yep. You just want to leave it on the flash drive? You want me to copy the
No,
whole thing?
would you put it on there?
Just by itself?
Uh-huh.
Should be good. Well, I can fire it up and you can minimize it. Are you first on the agenda, or are you?
I'm after the consent calendar.
Okay, well, I'll maximize it, I'll just minimize it. So
Cody.
it's down here running.
Okay. Can I have my drive?
Yep. I copied it really fast, but it's still there.
It's only a couple pages.
Okay, so it should be under, which one of these is it? Just want to make sure. You might just, it's a PDF. Just double click it again, it'll bring it back up.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but listen to me all day long.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our city council meeting. We're ready to get going. We had a few technical difficulties, mostly mine. So we'll go ahead and get started out right in the correct way by having an invocation by the Reverend Alex Wilkie.
Let us pray. Lord God, our Heavenly Father, in a strange place we're meeting today that we've never been in before. We thank you that these places are being made for us to learn how to get around and do the things that we need to do as we're being servants of the city council, and they're being our servants for us. May we each keep our minds solid and our time of commitment to a minimum, not to go on and on and on, as I have heard people do. Now bless each one of us, the mayor and each member of the city council, and may they remember their obligations and how much they need and how much time they have to say what they want to just say. And we give you thanks for this all. In the name of the Lord our God. Amen.
Amen. Reverend Wilkie? Reverend, remind me, you came to St. George in 1961, correct?
Yes.
1961. We were talking at the Prayer Over the City, and the first settlers were called to St. George in 1861.
On the other side of the street, when I went to some of those prayers, and then the last ones were up here while this building was being built.
Thank you for your service to our community.
Yes.
Appreciate you. We were talking at the prayer over the city that he came in 1961, and I said that's 100 years after the first settlers came. It's kind of cool. And then reminded him that our address here is 61 South Main. Super cool. So thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
I've asked Councilman Steve Kemp to lead us in the pledge.
Nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
That's a good idea. Okay, thank you for that. Now, we don't have any pre-agenda items, correct, John?
No pre-agenda items.
No pre-agenda items, so we can go right into the consent calendar.
Okay, item number 2 is the consent calendar. These are administrative items. Staff has reviewed them and recommend approval on all 7 items. However, if the council would like to remove any of these for specific consideration, staff can accommodate that. Otherwise, we recommend approval.
Council, any questions or?
I have a couple of real quick questions on items D and F. If we can pull those off for just a quick question, I'd appreciate it. I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar except for items D and F.
Second.
So we have a motion by Steve, a second by Natalie to approve the consent calendar with the exception of E and F? D.
D
As in dog
D
and F.
Dog and foxtrot.
Awesome. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, item D as in dog.
Yes, item 2D has to do with the widening of UDOT. I'm assuming this is the South Bluff widening project. Estimated that is it estimated the entire project will be 206 million? No, 200,000, excuse me. That wasn't what my question was. Our work will be this 200,000 net when you do the give and take based on what they're going to do for us and we're going to do for them.
So this 206,000 is what UDOT will reimburse to the city. We have 2 departments, Energy Services and Water Services, desiring work. Some of this project impacted some of the power utilities, power infrastructure. UDOT is reimbursing the city $206,000 and some change, and Energy Services is going to do that work. There's some other work that Energy Services will be doing beyond that $206,000. It's kind of outlined in that agreement, but UDOT will reimburse us the $206,000. The $59,000 and some change is Water Services work that UDOT will be doing on the project that the city will be paying UDOT.
Great. When is this project anticipated to start? We had a big flurry of activity and conversations about first of all, whether or not we should be widening South Bluff Street. And then the conversation about raised medians, et cetera, et cetera. We heard a bunch from the community members, and then everything went quiet. It sounds like they're moving forward with the project with or without our consent. I mean, I know we don't have to consent because it's a UDOT highway, but when's this thing supposed to get going?
So my understanding is they're hoping to get it maybe during the summertime. They've been, I'm probably getting it mixed up with another project on I-15. I think they want to go sooner than that. I'm getting it mixed up with I-15 widening. So Bluff Street, yes, they are wanting to move forward with this. I don't have a specific date, but I think within the next couple of months they want to bid it out, and then a couple months after that is when it would start construction. So
Has the design been finalized?
It's close to. I have a KMZ file that goes to Google Earth that I can show you the medians and the right-of-way and some of the landscaping and stuff that they provided to me in case that came up in the meeting. But I don't think they have 100% design plans. They may have 90%.
When we do, it'd be great to get that information and be able to, because I'm getting asked those questions by business owners on South Bluff. what's going on, what's happening here, and so I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Cameron.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was a question that I had as well, and I had reached out to Cameron on earlier in the week because it has been quite controversial, that project, and we haven't heard much on it the last several months really to know what was being finalized. So I know those medians especially are a source of contention, and it's something that I've not advocated for those medians, but it sounds like they are making some adjustments to those medians. Is that
They-
correct?
Correct. They have made some adjustments. They opened up one of the intersections. I think it was. I ought to open up if you want to see this.
Yeah, it might be nice if we could see the drawings. Do you have those?
I have just a KMZ file, so it outlines.
They're not finalized.
Yeah, they're not finalized. I got to put my glasses back on. And I was grateful that they shared this with me.
Do they not have to share that with you?
Not really. It's UDOT right of way. They do coordinate with us, and I do appreciate that. So they do, especially when it comes to the landscaping. UDOT would install medians in other places of the state and not install landscaping. Because of communication they've had with City of St. George, we wanted to try and beautify that south bluff rather than kind of like the north bluff that doesn't have the landscaping in. So
Do we know what the landscaping looks like?
I have, so this will be Main Street and Bluff, and I will just try and go up the road a little bit. So this green is the median, and then the yellow striping right next to it. And so you can see where these are supposed to be trees in here on this section of on the landscape median. And then as it gets to, I have the roadways turned on. I do. This is, I'm looking for the name of the road.
No kidding.
It's not coming up, but
I
it's
think this is a
Tire
bad
Pros
idea,
right
and
here.
I've been fighting against it. from day
Big O, is it Big O Tire? It opens up for the intersection. You've got the median as it goes forward. You don't have trees right here. You do have bushes. And then it opens up again at this intersection. This will be, I think the signal is at 900 south. This might be 950 south. And then it opens up again for the traffic signal.
Can you stop right there?
Yep.
And back up a little bit?
Sure.
So effectively, for that whole block between 900, or that whole section between 900 and I think that might be 8, right? Or close to it, maybe. next one
Signal's
up.
900.
Hmm?
The signal's 900. So then it's south.
900?
So
And then
the-
950.
that's
So,
probably
so from
950.
that intersection that you've got your mouse on, all the way up to 900, there will be no access northbound to any of those businesses on the west side.
Correct. It would be right in, right out through that area. Correct. They can get through the parking lot and get up to the traffic signal. I've done that quite a bit. But correct. There's no, on the Bluff Street, there's no left in or left out right there.
And I assume that all those trees right there in front of those businesses are going to be taken out.
I believe these trees were being impacted, yes.
They are? I thought they were staying.
No.
I know they, from the meeting that they came and spoke with you council about reducing the amount that they were going to on the curbing, they took that information and moved forward with that.
Did we have conversations about what the pedestrian access along here, whether it was a widened sidewalk or a path or?
It is a sidewalk.
Okay.
It is a sidewalk. We did remove the trail so that we didn't take out as many trees. And then we don't have any landscaping in this one, in this
But it
section.
is still a raised median.
It is a median, yes.
Thank you.
And then you get to, I think this is 850 south. It opens up. This is a potential driveway that they told the developer you can put a driveway in.
You can?
Can. I don't think they have, but that was a potential driveway that they could put in. But I don't believe they have. And then you've got some landscaping here. This is just below Arby's,
It's Arby's, yeah.
and then it opens back up.
So effectively, that large, the St. George Place project will have one interchange that is full functioning. That being that one right there, 900.
Correct. Unless they chose to put another driveway in.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, if you want to visit one of the businesses on the west side and you're traveling north on Bluff Street, your option is to flip a U-turn somewhere. Is that going to be allowed to come back to those businesses?
They have not told us that they were limiting or eliminating U-turns.
Because I know we heard this thing is so loud. I know we heard that. I mean, I was part of that when they did that on the boulevard. And we heard the Burger King people say that. It is really a hit to those businesses not to be able to get to that side. And we have a lot of businesses, food establishments on that side of the street that will make it more difficult for like people coming from my office to get to. But then right now we see on River Road where Sprouts is, people are coming almost up to the boulders and flipping a U-turn, which is another traffic hazard right there by Bundy Lane.
Sorry. Maybe the answer or the question I have is, after the meeting, can you provide the council members with a contact at UDOT for where they should have people send their public comments and their concerns? Because I've fielded a ton of them. I know other council members have as well. And it sounds like UDOT's not, I mean, you know, they're coordinating, so to speak, with your office, but they're not listening to the residents. And so I want to be able to tell them who to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cameron, well, and I do think sitting in those meetings with UDOT, I do think they made quite a few concessions and tried really hard to work with us on this, while also preserving safety. But I do think that we should ask them to look at the pedestrian flow now that the road is open up to Tech Ridge, just because that was part of the conversation. If we remove the trail, how are people going to be able to come down off Tech Ridge and access those businesses? And now that that trail from Tech Ridge is open down that new road, I think most people are actually going to want to use 900. It's what makes most sense. If you're coming down off of there, walking, you're going to want to come down 900 and access those businesses, whether you're on a bike or on foot. So just having them make sure that that pedestrian flow is good, because that's part of Tech Ridge's whole goal, is to have people use their car less. So,
Sure.
And I just want to make sure I understand correctly. So we as the council will have no input as far as the actual approval when they do finalize these plans, other than behind the scenes being an advocate for those businesses and residents, and having, like Councilman Kemp said, having residents contact UDOT directly. Outside of that, we don't have a lot of decision-making authority. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
And I guess I would say that this is, this is much different than the plan that we originally saw. The UDOT has worked with us. Originally, they were going to open up and do multiple lanes. They're only striping it for the existing lanes. They had far less cuts within the median. They added at least one, maybe two additional cuts. They did have a lot more landscaping, and so they reduced the landscaping. And so those businesses still have some visibility. They also had a little bit wider of a trail, but they came to the city on reducing the trail and hopefully saving much more trees. Originally, I think they had all but maybe 10 trees. They're cutting down about 40 trees. But with this updated plan and making those adjustments, I think they're saving more, around half of those trees. And so UDOT has been good to work with the city on several of these items. So I got to just point that out.
And John, I appreciate that. And I remember the original plans, and we have seen a significant movement from UDOT on being willing to work on some of those issues. Honestly, the ability to do another access, effectively a full functioning access at 9, I'm not sure if that's 900 or 800, whatever, just north of the Red Lion, that would drop into the new St. George Place. That would probably be the most impactful on the most businesses, especially new businesses. So I appreciate all those things, and I'm anxious to see the final design.
Yeah, just to echo what was being said in my conversations with UDOT, the question was, is there some of these things you can't bend on? And he's like, there's a couple that we can't, and it's because safety, and they're, at least from their viewpoint and from their data that they have, and a lot of that had to do with the medians and that they save lives, and so they just weren't willing to bend on those things, but they did take into consideration a lot of our other concerns, so I do appreciate that, but it is a UDOT right away. So with that, we could, should we do, we need to do a motion on that one. Oh, okay, all right.
Item 2F, this is a sole source for the Slick Rock. Looks like a the structural steel package for Slick Rock substation. One of the items listed in their contract had to do with whether procurement policies were waived, and if they were, first of all, were they waived? And secondly, if they were, why were they waived on procurement?
Yes. One of the reason we had went with this is to save time on the fabrication bid instead of having to bid out for the engineering and stuff, because Theobald has already done our substations, which are fairly uniform. Mm-hmm. We wanted to go forward with them because they already have in shop the engineering and stuff to do that, and we've worked with them before, and this is what purchasing recommended we do, to say go forward with that instead of.
So this saved us money by not having to re-engineer.
Correct.
Have somebody else engineer what we already have engineered. They can just cookie cutter to the next one.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items 2D and 2F of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Natalie for items D and F of the consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 3 is a presentation of the audited annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year 2025, and Tiffany will present this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our financial audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025 has been completed. Steve Palmer, audit partner, is here to discuss the process and answer any questions. While Steve now resides in Leeds, he has lived the majority of his life in St. George. After graduating from Dixie College and SUU, he started his 26-year career in public accounting with Hinton Burdick. He specializes in audits of local governments and serves on the firm's Governmental Practice Development Group, and he has served as Hinton Burdick's management team for several years. Effective January 1st, 2026, Hinton Burdick merged with Squire, a CPA firm located in northern Utah. Built on a shared commitment to exceptional client service, deep community roots, and forward-thinking leadership, the integration unites two firms that share a vision for growth, innovation, and long-term client success. Across the Intermountain West, the combination positions Squire Hinton Burdick as one of the largest CPA firms in the state, and although Hinton Burdick's name has changed to Squire, all partners and professional staff in southern Utah have remained unchanged, and the City of St. George will continue to receive the same attention, service, and expertise that we have received in the past. And with that, I will bring Steve up here to do his presentation. As just a reminder, there's no action needed on this. It's just an opportunity for you to ask any questions.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's a nice introduction. As Tiffany mentioned, effective January 1st, 2026, we did merge with another firm, Squire & Company, with offices mainly in Orem and Salt Lake City. And following the merger, we are now one of the biggest firms in the state. There were several strategic reasons we did this merger, but as Tiffany stated, and I would like to reinforce, what will not change is our dedication to provide quality auditing services for the city. All of the partners, professional staff with Hinton Burdick have just transitioned over to Squire. It truly was a merger and not a takeover. So I truly believe the only difference that you will see going forward is a change in the name. And this is just what Tiffany just read, so we'll skip that. But it is my pleasure to be here to report to you on the results of the city's most recent audit. As you know, the city is required to have an audit done for each fiscal year, and we have recently completed the fiscal year 2025 audit. Upon completion of the audit, we issue several reports. The first being the independent auditor's report. It's within this report where we express our opinion on the city's financial statements, or if after doing all of our audit procedures, we agree that the city's financial statements are materially correct. And I'm pleased to report that we issued an unmodified, or a clean opinion, if you will, on the city's financial statements. Excuse me. Governmental auditing standards require us to issue this second report on compliance on internal controls over financial reporting. There are a few different categories of findings which could potentially be issued in this report if we discover problems in the entity that we're auditing. I'm pleased to report that we did not note anything that rose to the level of needing to be reported on within this report. No material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies were noted. We also performed an audit of the city's expenditures of federal funds. Each year that an entity expends $1 million or more of federal monies, they have to go through procedures which are referred to as a federal single audit. And the federal government gives us the steps or the procedures they would like us to perform for the grants received by the city. I'm pleased to report that we issued an unmodified opinion on this as well, and we did not note any instances of unallowed or questioned costs. We did note one minor finding, a compliance finding, in that on a form that the city submitted for expenditures on a particular project, the amount of expenditures reported on that form did not agree with the expenditures in the city's financial records. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. However, I did want to point out that management's response to that finding is in great detail on page 210 of the city's financial statements, if you'd like to read that, or if the public is interested in reading that. But we'll address that in a little bit more detail in just a minute. The last report that we issued is on the city's compliance with state requirements. The state auditor's office gives us a compliance supplement that they want us to use with each audit, and they give specific procedures they want us to perform. We did notice a couple of things that are findings under these procedures that are required to be reported. The first being deficit fund balance. The Central Business Development CDA fund reported a deficit fund balance, and the Tech Ridge CDA also reported a deficit fund balance. The second finding that we had is that the Tech Ridge CDA overexpended the budgeted amount, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail now as well. I also want to point out that more detailed responses are included in the financial statements on pages 210. So let's look at these two findings in just a little bit more detail. The deficit fund balance in the Central Business District, you may remember this has been around for a few years now. A number of years ago, the city purchased a hotel on the boulevard, and after they purchased that, it created a deficit fund balance. Now that property has been sold, that deficit has been reduced, and the city is continuing to reduce that balance, and it's expected that it will be eliminated through future revenues. The Tech Ridge CDA reported a deficit fund balance in fiscal year 2025, mainly due to expenditures for the new road on the east side of Tech Ridge. And it's also expected that deficit will be eliminated in future years through tax increment and revenues resulting from the Tech Ridge project. For expenditures in excess of budget, the Tech Ridge CDA transferred money out to the Capital Project Fund to fund the construction of the new road. And due to the timing of when that transfer occurred, management was not able to get the budget amended in a timely manner. And so it ended up having expenditures in excess of budget due to that transfer to the Capital Projects Fund. And last but not least, the finding with the federal single audit. That form that did not agree to the city's accounting records was actually completed by staff of NRCS. And they did not have accurate information, and the city did not detect that those expenditures were not accurately reported. The city has since implemented controls to ensure that review is made so that expenditures on the form do agree to the city's underlying accounting records. So in summary, those were the significant items that we noted during our audit. Overall, a very good audit, a clean opinion in all material respects. I would certainly like to express my thanks to Tiffany and Robert, who bear the brunt of the audit. We ask a lot of questions, we ask for a lot of documents, and they're always very accommodating and give us everything that we request so that we can complete our audit. And with that, I will open it up to any questions that you may have.
Okay. I have a question, Steve, about pension liability. What is a healthy pension liability in your opinion? And is that something you advise on over time? Like you're looking, when you're doing an audit for us, you're looking out into the future?
Yeah. So the net pension liability is an interesting thing. It's going to fluctuate every year depending on the demographics of the workforce employed by the city, as well as stock market performance and actuarial studies that all go into calculating that net pension liability. The best advice I can give is as long as the city continues to contribute the amounts recommended by URS, the Utah Retirement Systems, that should provide the resources sufficient to fund that liability. And that's what the city does each year. URS, the contribution rates will change depending on what's actually happened and their projections. And as long as those contributions are made, the city should have adequate resources to fund the liability. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Steve? Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see you.
Okay, item number 4 is a public hearing and consideration of resolution number 2026-001R to review and approve amendments to the fiscal year 2025 and 26 budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's item is to look at 3 different amendments for your consideration. All 3 of these amendments had accompanying purchases on tonight's consent agenda that the council will reviewed and approved. The first item, and I'll go ahead and walk through these, and if the council has any questions, I'll be happy to address those. The first requested amendment is by our police department to add funding for the conversion of the current vehicle garage at the city commons to a fully operational multi-level storage facility. The police department currently uses multiple locations within the city, including the headquarters, the city commons, and the animal shelter storage facility there to store all of their long-term and short-term evidence. The city actually went out and looked at an analysis a couple years ago to see how we could address that need, because the demands of the county and on maintaining those items is just growing longer and longer, so their inventory is just continuing to grow. And so we looked at an alternative option of converting a portion of that garage to long-term storage, but what we determined was that only bought them 3 to 5 years in their need. And so we went back and we looked at a longer-term solution. This longer-term solution would buy them 20 to 30 years of inventory, and it would also centralize all their inventory in one place within the city commons garage area, which would help them be more efficient in managing that inventory. And so staff is requesting to amend the budget in the amount of $680,888 for that purchase, or for that conversion of that space. Funding for this project would come from our general capital project fund balance to fund that conversion. Item 2 is a request from our SunTran division to add funding for the purchase of 2 replacement transit buses that are at the end of their useful life. The city currently operates 15 buses across our 8 routes that we offer to the community. 2 of those buses are currently at the end of their life, basically 500,000 miles. And so we request to replace both these buses. The order time for the bus is about 18 months. And so staff would request to amend the budget amount of $1,418,708 to make that replacement. 80% of that purchase would be funded through an FTA grant that we would receive, and then 20% of that would be the city's match, and we would propose to use the Transit Sales Tax Fund to fund that portion of the purchase. And then item number 3 is a request from our airport department to amend the budget to add funding to retain professional services for project management related to the terminal expansion project. This consultant would serve as the city's agent and fiduciary, and help the city control costs and make sure that the project is moving forward and meeting all the critical timelines on that project. So staff would request to amend the budget amount of $150,000 to fund that consultant, and the funding for this request would come from a prior state grant that we received in 2024 of $10 million that would help fund that, and this would be to fund the phase 1 portion of that project through completion of design of the terminal expansion. With that, there's 3 amendments. I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions for Robert?
I just have a comment. I had made a request of Mark that you all saw over this $680,000 because I saw that the way that the bids looked, they looked drastically different. And so Mark sent all of us the bid request information. Sometimes when you see bids come in and they look drastically different, it's because the bid request wasn't thorough enough. But that wasn't the case. So I just wanted to report that the bid request was actually really fantastic. It was very thorough. So I think the only reason why the bids that came in looked so different is just simply because the contractors structured them differently. So just wanted to share that.
I just had a couple questions on Suntran, which Robert and I emailed a little bit earlier in the week, but I just wanted to clarify because I had asked how many passengers are riding it annually, and so it was 372,000, a little over that, passenger trips. And so by passenger trips, does that mean that does that actually count the number of people, or is that just how many trips the buses will take the trip regardless of if anyone's on there, correct?
So that's counting every time somebody boards the bus.
So that is an actual boarding of okay. Perfect. Yeah, because something, and we've talked about in the past, is, does it make more sense to do more micro buses? Do we need these large buses? Do we have the usage to justify the millions, that we're putting in? So I think that's just always something that we need to be looking at for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's something we need to keep talking about because, you have to balance. You have a bigger bus, but then you only have one driver. You get smaller micro mobility and you have to have more drivers. But in a lot of places, that micro mobility does make better sense. So it's definitely a conversation for us to keep having.
Well, I'm happy to report on that. We hired our new transit manager later last year, and we've actually been working on an RFP for our service study. And so we're planning to come to the council in February to have a discussion on the goals that the council has for that service study so that we can move forward with determining if there are other options of service that we need to provide to help us be more efficient. So we're looking at that, and we're trying to move forward with that request.
Perfect. Any others? Thank you, Robert. With that, we'll go ahead and this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for those who have come to speak to item number 4 for the review and approve amendments to the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, council, and come back to you for your consideration.
Mayor Hughes, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2026-001R to approve the amendments to the fiscal year budget 2025-26.
I'll second.
Motion by Danielle, second by Steve. This is a resolution requiring a roll call vote, starting with Steve.
Steve Kemp, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 5, consider approval of ordinance number 2026-001 to amend the Green Valley Mall and Professional Plaza PDC permitted use list generally located at the corner of Valley View Drive and Dixie Drive. And Brian will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So just as John said, this is the Green Valley Mall and Professional Plaza. Again, this is at the corner, both corners of Valley View Drive and Dixie Drive. Professional Plaza is on the north side of Valley View Drive, and then the Green Valley Mall on the south side. Current land use is commercial. Current zoning is PDC. This PDC was originally approved in 1984 with the approved use list of the AP use list. Just a reminder, as for the AP and the C1s, they're usually much smaller commercial developments, usually surrounded by residential zones, just trying to limit the impact on those residential zones around them while also providing conveniences and other services. So again, 1984, this AP use list. Later in May of 85 was this commercial C1, which was added to the use list there. And then the applicant is proposing these 3 retail uses: antique shop, used furniture, and then thrift shop, secondhand, store consignment with that no storage or no deliveries outside of business hours. With that, I can answer any questions that you may have, and one of the owners and the applicant is here as well, if you have any questions for them.
Brian, that was my question. I did some research on the ownership of this property, and it doesn't look like the applicant, Old Gold Enterprises, is either of the owners. Is this a tenant
Yes, it's going to be one of the tenants.
that's making applicant? Do they have the approval of the owner?
Yeah, they've talked to both owners, both for the Professional Plaza and the Green Valley Mall. They were both involved as to what was going to be added on the use list. Yeah, they kind of know what's going on.
I noticed that it was all owned by the Lemleys at one time, and then they sold the larger section to a group out of California. The other question is, there's quite a few little shops in that area. I drive by it every day. Why, if we're going to go, I now knowing that it's a tenant that was the applicant, that all they wanted to do is make sure that their use got added. I think that we, in the future, may want to look at if we're going to do these amendments to these PDCs, maybe adding a few more uses, because I know that center has struggled only being able to do restaurants and, that very small list, and those types of neighborhood uses are needed in that area, as this is one of the few commercial nodes on the west side.
That is something that we brought up to the applicant, is to involve the owners and make sure they communicated with the owners, go through all the commercial uses, and see if there was any additions they wanted to make to it. They did add. They actually only had antique store and used furniture store. They added the consignment portion as well. I think there was maybe a little bit of caution there, saying, "Hey, we don't want to do anything too drastic," and they still kind of wanted to make sure that they got their uses approved. And so I think that's why it kind of came back to those 3. But you're right; it was definitely brought up.
And I'm not being critical of their use. I appreciate their use, and I know that these thrift stores or used furniture stores are very popular right now. I have my children that I ask them what they did that day, and they said they went thrifting. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Yep.
So I know there's a need for them, but I am concerned about the storage of used clothing and goods and furniture and things like that outside. Is there any regulations about that stuff needing to be stored inside?
So I think that's kind of where that one portion comes in, where it talks about no outside storage. I think that's where that comes in. I think really the business is closed. It's more talking about the deliveries.
And then obviously the no drop-off items during hours. The business is closed. All of our secondhand or thrift stores have that same requirement.
Yeah, this is a use that's pulled directly from the commercial uses. So yeah, same verbiage. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay, thanks, Brian. Come back to you for your action.
I will make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2026-001 to amend the Green Valley Mall and Professional Plaza PDC permitted use list generally located at the corner of Valley View Drive and Dixie Drive.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Natalie. This is a ordinance requiring a roll call vote, starting with Michelle.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Steve Kemp, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 6, consider approval of ordinance number 2026-002, amending the city zoning map by changing the zone from AVI ASBP, and open space to C2 on approximately 27 acres generally located directly north of Southern Parkway at approximately 2600 East.
Okay, thank you, John. Yes, this is the location. You see Southern Parkway here on the map. Outlined in red are the properties. Land use is part of the Desert Canyons PD, and then the zoning map shows the various zoning that they are currently zoned. Again, the AVI, the ASBP, and the open space. They are currently in the middle of building Flowers Way, and that is going right through these properties. In fact, isolating a piece of this open space, but also kind of creating what would appear to be kind of a pad that could naturally be used for some sort of construction or some kind of building. So the applicant is proposing, that they go to a C2. This would allow them to expand their uses. The ASBP and the AVI are a little more restrictive, and they'd like to just have a little more flexibility. That's why they're asking for this. One thing, a lot of maps in here. One thing that we wanted to make sure is that if that open space is taken away, that we're not taking something that was required through either their development agreement or their zone plan, because they are required to dedicate or to set aside a certain amount of open space with each project that they do. So if you have a single family development, that requires them to set aside some open space. So we want to make sure that if we took that open space away here, that would not reduce them lower than what they are required to give. So we went through that analysis. We sat down with the applicant, their zone plan. We looked with our legal team, and we and where we landed was that they are actually approximately, as of the last time that they donated, approximately 30 acres, almost 31 acres over what they're required to give. So by removing this 3 or so acres, they would not dip below that required open space that they're required to have. So just wanted to make sure that was understood. And again, this is the applicant submitted this, but this is the current zoning, and this is what they are proposing to go to C2 on all 3 of those pieces that the Flowers Way would bisect. So with that, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, and they recommend approval with a 6-0 vote. And if you have any questions, the applicant is here, or I can try to answer those as well.
I guess my question is, so in the narrative it said they were trading the open space.
Yeah.
So that's not the case anymore, because you're saying they're 30 acres over on their open space, or are they still trading it?
So when we go back to this slide, they will need to reduce that 30.772 by that 3 or so acres that they are taking out of their open space. So
it's not a trade. It's just reducing.
Right,
Okay.
right.
That's
exactly
fine. I just wanted to make sure that we have that correct, because the narrative does say they're trading it.
Okay.
I have a question for Dan.
Yeah.
One of the items in the C2 zone is it automatically has an allowable height of 50 feet for facilities. This piece of property is in direct line of the airport approach or takeoff, and I wanted to find out if you had done any calculations on the elevation change between these parcels on both sides of Flowers Way and the runway and then have you had any conversations with Dustin to make sure we're in compliance with the FAA? Most of the properties out there where we're put into AVI or this other zone, one of those requirements was that they have a height limit.
Right. Yep. So when in the ASBP, and I believe the AVI is the same way, they're required to, as part of their site plan review, get approval from the FAA. It's a part. I can't remember the number, but it's an approval from the FAA basically. So we did look at that, and we did talk to Dustin because there was some concern would that be too high, and after we went back and forth, Dustin felt like that it wouldn't interfere with the airport's requirements and so forth. So,
Do you know how much elevation change there is? I mean, I can see the rings on the topo map, but they're too small to count. Have any idea what the elevation is? Maybe that's something the applicant can answer if you can't.
Yeah, he might be able to answer a little better, but let me show you this right here. That's kind of a bluff, and there's a lot of there's some biking trails up there and so forth. So this is at the bottom of that, and so I believe, and maybe Kirk can add on to this, but any building which could go up to 50 feet would sit below that bluff, I believe. But if you want to, that's off there.
Mayor and Council, Kurt Gordon with Desert Canyons. So the area that we're talking about, the closest to the runway is about 1.25 miles south of the runway, and it's roughly 100 feet below the elevation of the runway. And so if you put together the conical surface, which is 1 foot in elevation per 100 feet that the FAA would allow you to build, you would have to have a 150-foot tall building in this area.
Before you would violate FAA.
Before you'd have to go talk to the FAA. So we don't have any plans like that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we had looked into that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt.
Any other?
No.
If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. We're on number 6, right? Ordinance 2026-002, amending the city zoning map by changing the zone from AV airport vicinity industrial airport supporting business park and open space to C2 highway commercial on approximately 27 acres generally located directly north of the Southern Parkway at approximately 2600 east, with recommendations by staff that he'll need to submit fully designed site plan and comply with all the requirements of C2 zoning at the time of development.
I'll second the motion, but I do have some discussion.
Well,
Last item, the top of that mesa that Kurt just mentioned it's a mountain bike trail, I believe. I can't remember the name of it. Pushing 10, yes. How will this development ultimately impact that mountain bike trail, if at all? And will it benefit or hurt that?
Let's go. So you can see that the mountain bike trail basically follows the wash that's to the east of the OS zone right there, and that'll stay in place. We've actually built under Flowers Way a culvert that's big enough to have, you can, it's 9 feet tall. So that trail will continue and connect on to that Pushing 10 open space trail.
Great. I appreciate that. I know that mountain bike trail was built at significant expense by, I believe, Desert Canyons. So wouldn't want to see that go away. So I'm fine with I've seconded the motion.
any further discussion? If not, we have a motion by Natalie and a second by Steve. This is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote, starting with Steve.
Steve Kemp, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item 7, to consider approval of ordinance number 2026-003, amending the city zoning map by changing the zone from RE 12.5 and GNG to PDTNZ on approximately 49.3 acres, generally located on the east side of Highway 18 between 4100 North and 4400 North.
All right. Site is located, just as John just said, on Highway 18. You have 4200 North here, so 41 would be about the southern boundary, and then 4400 North up on the top here. This is adjacent to project on the north property and other property that is looking at doing some other development down here to the south, but is currently undeveloped. Land use map calls for properties designated low density residential and general plan. One thing to note with the PDT&Z is that it's explicitly compatible with this design. So really, there's in the code it doesn't require a general plan amendment for a TNZ. The zoning map calls for is RE 12.5 and gravel and grazing. It says M&G, but I think that's a carryover from an old designation. It's gravel and grazing. The context map. This is showing surrounding uses include planned residential neighborhoods, public lands, SR 18. Sorry, north is to the left, just to orient yourself. Project is designed to transition appropriately between the ledges up here on the north, and then future land uses here on the south as well. You can see that they've stubbed in their design all their roads going into those different either potential projects or even into some of the property that is owned privately and currently homes access off of. So they've tried to lay it out in such a way that it will comply with future development standards and so forth. So land use plan, this is kind of the meat and potatoes really of what they want to do. It includes 380 total dwelling units. One thing with the PDT&Z, which I should explain, we only have one of in town actually, and it is Desert Color. And so this isn't Desert Color, but it has some of the same elements that Desert Color was required to comply with. So one of which is that there's two subcategories of this zone. There's an NG subcategory and an NE, which means neighborhood general or neighborhood commercial, or neighborhood edge, sorry. They have opted to go for the neighborhood general over the entire property. The neighborhood general is typically smaller lots. One thing that you should also note, though, that this is really designed to be a single family zone. So there's a requirement that there's at least 50% of the units would be single family, and so they're meeting that at 54% or 204 single family homes. There are commercial elements, there are multifamily elements, there are duplexes, fourplexes, threeplexes as well. And so you see that the density kind of is more up here towards the front. These would be probably some apartments, but you have triplexes, kind of a mixed use, live-work situation, and then here you'd have commercial uses as well. But as you go out both to the south, to the east, and to the north, you get into just the single-family homes. So that's really kind of and again, just want to point out that they are stubbing into these properties for future development. Civic space. This is another requirement of the PDT&Z zone. They are required to have at least 5% in the NG category for civic space. They are providing 8.4%. They're also required to have it centrally located. So they've provided several spaces throughout here, paseos, greens, and then this is kind of the big one here, and then also this one up by the commercial and mixed use areas. So there are several civic spaces throughout the community, and so they're meeting that requirement as well. Tree planting is another thing that is covered in the design guidelines for the TNZ zone. They're showing this is a typical what a typical street would look like as far as their tree plantings. Setbacks. Excuse me. This is they have the various types of units here. Again, townhomes, apartment, 12plex flats, 2-story townhomes, duplexes, then your detached products, and your live work as well. And so these are the various setbacks. We can go over any of those if you want, or we can come back to them as we kind of go through this as well. But that's what they're proposing. Zoning code requirements. So there's two things that we looked at with this project. TNZ design guidelines. There's actually a manual that was produced that kind of guides how the project will develop, and then there's also the zoning code. So that zoning code states that they need to meet not only the zoning guidelines but also the development manual. So they've gone through, and in your packet was their zone plan that they're proposing, and as we've looked at the zoning requirements, the zoning code requirements, it appears to meet all of the requirements therein. We've talked about most of these, the mix of forms, the NG civics and the civic space, the integration, how it will integrate with properties around it. And then this is the architectural design guidelines. And I won't go through every one of these, but just know that we've gone through these. We want to make sure that all of these are being complied with. And they have, again, in their zone plan outlined guideline by guideline how they will comply with all these standards. The parking requirements. Again, don't want to go over every one of these, but if you have any questions about the parking, one thing that is interesting about this one is that there will be on-street parking. And on-street parking is actually encouraged in the TNZ, the PD-TNZ zone, because it's more walkable and so forth. We want to have things that will slow traffic down. One of those being on-street parking. So that is unique to the PD-TNZ zone. We typically don't allow to count for on-street parking. But in this
Can I interrupt you for a minute, Dan?
Yes, sir.
I looked through the packet, and there was the road width. The width of these roads was, I couldn't get clarity on that. Are you going to be covering that in another part of your presentation?
I hadn't, and Wes, did you want to talk about that a little bit? The road widths?
I did meet with Development Solutions. We kind of went over the road layouts to make sure, because the property to the south has submitted a plan, we've looked at and their road layout, so we wanted to make sure that the two are going to interface together.
You're talking about the former Trails project?
Yeah,
Okay.
And they were involved in
but
some
not
of that.
the individual properties that are wedged between them. Those
No,
weren't
it was
included?
the trails and theirs, and also to make sure the snows and that all had access. And so we went over that to make sure. And as I recall, we did talk about, this has been a while, so as I recall, we did talk about the road widths and that they did meet a city standard, but we'll have to verify that.
What city standard? We've got road widths here that are 106 feet wide and 35 feet wide. This is the only issue I have with this project. I love it. I think it's a great project. I'm super excited to see it happen, and I'm thankful for the developers for bringing it forward and being willing to do something different. But the road width and the access that those large lots, how they will access their properties and the width of the road, especially with on-street parking, is the only concern I have. So,
And again, it's been a while since I sat down and went over this with them, but I believe we have a 45-foot right of way, a 50-foot right of way, and we are looking at maybe narrowing one more that we talked about for townhomes, because sometimes when you have townhomes, they're actually, because of the driveways it creates, there is no parking on the road, and so we're still looking at that as we go through the standards, and I think that they had met that, knowing that we are hopefully coming forward with that as far as a little narrower cross section for townhome type projects.
So we don't know.
I think to me, it's a question of, are we going to allow road widths that make sense for TNZ, for the walkable neighborhood, which is what Dan was presenting. Regardless of what that road width is, it has to be wide enough for people to drive down it. So regardless, they're going to have access.
Correct.
So in the TNZ, in the design manual, there's a specific road width that is different than what our code requires. And so in a residential road, you're going to have, there's a 55-foot residential, but the cross section is 14 feet and 14 feet. So you actually have 28 feet of asphalt, curb, gutter, planter, and sidewalk. And so your cross section in a TNZ is different than what it is in the other code, because the idea is you're going to have narrow streets, you're going to slow down traffic, which encourages safe pedestrian walking. And so it's just the TNZ is a different type of project than what you see in other areas.
which I encourage, and I'm excited again for this. But if you've got 20 feet of asphalt and you've got on-street parking, you're going to lose at least 15 feet. You're going to have a 5-foot section of asphalt left.
No, so you're going to have in your 55-foot, which is your local residential street, and it depends on how the classifications are. You're going to have 28 feet of asphalt, and so if you have parking on each side, what's the parking? You figure 8 feet, and so then you are going to have, whatever the remaining is of 16 minus 28 west. 12 feet of
drive aisle
Yep.
between the two, so two cars couldn't pass. It would be, and I'm okay with the concept of what's going on here. I just want to, I know that we've got right adjacent to this property to the south, we've got some large property owners who have arenas, and they have, big horse trailers and big dualies and other things like that. And this is going to be their only access to their property, because the road that's already there is going to be absorbed into this project.
And so that's that's your local residential street. There are there are a whole other segment of different roadways. So it depends on how that's classified on what the width's going to be.
So are we using the 55 local residential? Is that what those roads will be?
Yeah, that's the one that John was referring to.
So there's also a 70-foot mixed-use commercial, a 70-foot, and so we need to look at those roadways and determine if they've classified them the appropriate cross-section based on what the use is.
Sure. And again, everything about the project I really enjoy. I'm encouraging, and I like to see, and I appreciate these guys being willing to step out of the mold, so to speak, and do this. But there's already an existing road, I think it's even labeled 4230 north, that comes off and goes to these other properties, and maintaining that access so that they're able to access those 3 or 4 parcels that they have, their residential homes, that they live there and they use those. My only concern is that we're not cutting off or so severely limiting their ability to get down that road that they have. If we're only talking about 12 feet total, Was that right? If we, what was it, 28 minus 12 or 28 minus
Right.
16? So 12 feet total.
And that neighbor actually came to the public hearing, the one that lives here.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And voiced that same concern. And I don't want to put words in the applicant's mouth. He's here if he wants to speak
I'd love
to
to
it.
hear
But
from the applicant about what they see here, because I have one other question about and I'm sorry for interrupting your presentation. This was the only fly in the ointment to me, so that's why I did.
No problem.
The other concern was the road adjacent to that property going to the south. Is it the intention that they're going to put in the full road width and then have a small narrow strip of property that they own to the east of that road?
Right. I'm not totally sure. That all we want right then again, we were just making sure at that point that they were connecting. So we didn't really discuss about what they were going to do. I can see that remnant piece right there on that east side of that. Yeah.
I just want to maybe these are applicant questions, so I'll let you finish your presentation and then we can ask those.
Sure. And I won't take too much more time. These are just some examples that they put in their zone plan of what they felt like they could, what they wanted to provide. These won't be exact, but it gives you a kind of a flavor of the type of housing that will go in there. And then the attached townhomes, small scale multifamily, and then some details on the commercial as well. So with the recommendation, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the application for Rusty Cliffs zone change with these conditions: that the number of units associated with the project is limited to 380 as shown, that there's preliminary plat submitted for review and approval, that any units, or group of units that are not single family will have to come back for your review as a PD amendment.
Dan, can I ask you a question on that one in
Please.
particular?
Yes.
Why is that necessary? That seems redundant.
Typically, when we get a PD, we have full elevations, drawings, that kind of thing, and we don't have that with this. So just like Desert Color, they come back with pretty much any neighborhood that has any sort of multifamily element to it. Same idea.
But isn't that already in our code? If you're building a TNZ neighborhood, why do we need to add that? It's just redundant, is all I'm saying, right?
I would agree with that. We specifically mentioned as in the different sections of the TMZ zone that what we're looking for, that we can't, mass and scale and those kind of things.
If you're comfortable with them working with staff on those kind of things, and us making sure that all the guidelines are being met and they commit to that, that's certainly something that you can.
I just think that one of our goals has been to reduce redundancy and additional reviews on top of reviews if they're not necessary. And where we've already got the TNZ spelled out so distinctly, it doesn't make sense to me to add an additional redundancy to make it more complicated for the developer.
That's definitely a condition that could be eliminated if that's what you'd like to do.
What that does is it puts the burden on staff to ensure that it's complying with the code, opposed to coming in front of the city council to look at the design.
I don't have a problem with keeping it in, just for councils down the road, if this takes a while to build out, for them to have that consistency and to lift that off staff. Then us come back and say we don't like it.
Does the code now require the multifamily to come back to the city council? Would this be a deviation from the code?
The code, yes, actually, the code requires for PDs that they come back for, when they turn in a PD, such as this, that they would have full elevations, concept landscape plan, concept site plan. Now we have this concept landscape and site plan. What we don't have really, the only thing we're really missing here are the elevations. But that is in the PD. That is a requirement of the PD.
Has the applicant given us a sample of what the elevations would be, and would that suffice to meet that that requirement.
These are the samples that they gave us. I'm trying to remember.
I guess question to the applicant, would they be comfortable, and I'm assuming they're not being comfortable with these elevations being applied across the project. That's what I assumed. Okay.
Well, I guess that's not, maybe I'm not stating my point effectively, but to me, we created these, like the TMZ zone, we created it so that it would speed up these processes, right? So people could do creative things, and then we also want to speed up the processes. So adding that additional review it just seems redundant to me.
Yeah, and I think like these example elevations, I think I'm just trying to think in my mind, is there a way that this could suffice that requirement in the code? And looking at the applicant's nodding his head, I think he'd be concerned with being limited to these specific elevations to meet the code. And so
Basically, I guess maybe I'm not understanding, because I think that they would have had to come back anyway, the way that it's written in our code.
correct. So the code requires all the elevations to be approved. They did submit some sample elevations. I think if the applicant was okay building to these sample elevations, I think you can make an argument that it met that portion of the PD ordinance. But in a sense, they're not completely satisfied with, unless I'm misspeaking, Stacy, not satisfied with those examples, then he'd have to come back and get additional elevations approved.
But Planning Commission added this as an additional requirement when it's already part of the code. So why do we have to have that added as an additional requirement?
I don't think the code needs to be clarified as part of a condition, because they're required to comply with the code regardless if that condition was in place. So that could be removed.
So back to the road, do we ever determine what the width of the road was?
Based
It is
on
50?
what I was provided, it looks like it's 55 feet, the residential street section, with 28 feet of asphalt total. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is the road that will replace the existing road 4230 north that comes directly off of the roundabout. The roundabout is what comes off of the frontage road.
Yeah. Am I stating correctly? Yeah.
And we would have that same road width on the road that right now they've got a little strip of asphalt that comes south. And that road that effectively lines up with that would also be 28 feet total of asphalt, with the ability to park cars on both sides, on-street parking.
There could be areas right around that, right here that we don't allow parking in that exact area.
Steve,
just
what
to
if
make
you,
sure
yeah, what if you just made part of the motion that on that particular street, because it's access for those lots and it's peculiar, right? Like it's different, that there's parking on only one side of the street through that section. They have to sign it.
You could make that a condition if
That they can only park on one side of the street?
yeah, or there's just no parking in this intersection, and we can work with the applicant.
Will that work with because we are including on-street parking, will that work? Will that work for the applicant?
I think that'd be hard for us to enforce in a residential neighborhood to have no parking for single family.
On one side?
Yeah. Because you'd have to, it'd be like you're having a red curb in front of your house. I think that'd be probably.
Can we do it around the actual intersection that's where you're going to have the biggest issue with things like horse trailers and other types of trailers, making that, we do that in downtown on intersections.
That'd be easier to enforce. Usually it's 20 feet from a stop sign anyways, where you're not able to park. And so that may naturally, I think it may be easier to make sure the sweep is correct on that intersection than it would be to limit the parking.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my original intention, was just around that curve on that one particular intersection. So
in this case, it's where the road curves and comes to the south. It only affects one lot on the east side of the road.
Yep. Right here. The applicant may have something to say about that as well. If he, he's
You want
here.
to come up? He's been itching to the whole time, I know. Come on up, Stacy.
Yeah, you guys know me, Stacy Young, representing this item, and I love to hear myself speak. You guys know that. Yeah, no, I think would be absolutely happy to prohibit parking on as much of this as you're comfortable, as would make you comfortable. In this type of neighborhood, we welcome on-street parking, but in fact, I don't think it's going to be heavily utilized. We still will be providing a ton of off-street parking with the alley-loaded garages and so forth. So it's not going to be in high demand, and so if it will make you more comfortable to remove some, that won't be a problem.
Does it make sense what I'm saying about with 28 feet of asphalt and you lose 16 of those feet to parking on either side, that you're looking at a 12-foot piece of asphalt that you'll actually know and be guaranteed you'll have access to drive down on any particular time? Mm-hmm. And that being a concern to the rest of the project, these people know what they're getting into. Mm-hmm. But to the fact that there's already an existing road there and we're going to be absorbing that road into the project, I appreciate that you've designed it in such a way to give access to those parcels and keep those to maintain that access for those individuals. I think there's only 3 homes, correct? 3 landowners.
Yeah.
So I would.
Yeah, in fact, I think there's actually only 2 homes. The rest are just arenas. Yeah.
I thought the
There
third
might be
parcel
3.
had a home on it. Yeah, though you might be right.
I don't know
Anyway.
how to work your new tech here, but yeah, I think the rest are just arenas.
And then when these people, who knows when the next generation, what's going to happen to that roughly 20, maybe 25 acres that's sitting there, and it is being wedged in between your project and the former trails. I don't know what it's being called now or what. I know another group bought it.
Right.
So I don't want to get these people get stuck and not be able to get out of their properties. And I think if that's something we can work on
for sure.
Down.
Yeah, but I think Gay and Lee are the only 2 folks that actually live there, as far as I know.
Excuse me?
Gay Bowler here and Lee Snow here, I think, are the only 2 actual residents. The rest are.
And you've got roads that push to both of those, into those. The one coming down. So I appreciate you designing it that way.
Yeah, and I think they actually will get bigger.
But they'll have 16 feet of cars on either side of them. So
potentially.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Stacy.
Other questions?
Any other questions for Stacy? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other discussion, questions? That was a good 29-minute discussion. Good questions. Yeah, what was the Reverend's prayer? No. No, those were all good questions. Thank you. I am ready.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 7, ordinance number 2026-003, amending the city zoning map by changing the zone from RE 12.5 and G&G on approximately 49.3 acres to PD TNZ. And accepting the Planning Commission's recommendations, except for striking recommendation number 3.
What page of the packet is that on?
The recommendations are, sorry, my page numbers actually aren't showing
Okay,
up.
I see it. Never mind, it's in front of us.
Page 7 of item 7.
I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion by Danielle, a second by Michelle. This is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote.
Can we have discussion on the motion?
If you would like discussion, absolutely.
Really quick discussion. Would you consider amending your motion to include the request that the developer be willing to work with the existing landowners, specifically the Snow family, where you have to make that turn on making sure that they have correct radius or enough radius for large trailers?
Yes, we can amend the motion.
Thank you.
Are you okay with that, Michelle? Okay, so we have an amended
You have
motion.
Everything you need? Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just making sure Dan.
Okay. Clear, Dan? All right. So we have amended motion by Danielle and a second by Michelle. This is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote, starting with Michelle.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Steve Kemp, aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 8, consider approval of a conditional use permit for a new cell tower on an approximately 4,000 square foot site located at approximately 1001 East White Dome Drive.
All right. This is the site. You have the Career Tech High School here, River Road off to the far right, and White Dome Drive accessing the property right next to the new LDS Seminary building right there. There's some topography to this. You kind of come up this way, and then it's there's some hillside over here, but this is the 4,000 square feet right next to that, again, that seminary building property that they're proposing. Land use map is PD, and I believe that's part of the Desert Color PD, and then the R110 zoning map currently. So the reason they are before you is because if they wanted to do a tower 50 feet or less, they wouldn't have. They could just do that by right. Once you hit that 51st foot up to 100, that they have to apply for a conditional use permit. That gives you the discretion to look at it. Are there any conditions? Really, conditional use permit is a permitted use, but what kinds of conditions that need to be or are appropriate for the site in order to stave off any sort of ill effects that this use might bring. So that's why they're before you. Code requires a conditional use permit. You can see it's in the R110 zone again. This is a look at the site. Closer up version shows the cell tower here. There will be some buildings and areas for equipment as well. 100 feet is what they are proposing. The antenna does go to a little higher height of 105 feet, but the actual tower itself is 100 feet tall. They're proposing one of the things that we talked about at the Planning Commission. The applicant said that they were okay with the changing. By the way, the applicant couldn't be here tonight because of conflict with another site that he had to go to another meeting, but wanted to proceed. But this fencing, they're proposing a vinyl fence. As we know, vinyl fences don't do super well here, so that's why you have a condition that it be a masonry fence. That's actually what's required in the code. As well, 6 foot high masonry fence around this site. So they were okay with that. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. This is just a little bit closer look at the proposed tower. There will be co-locating. If you've spent time down in Desert Color, you know that achieving a good signal down there can be a challenge. So this will help with that. It won't take care of it 100%, but the applicant says that they have another site in Desert Color that they're working on as well to get better coverage of that whole area. So that is what they are proposing. And here's that fence that I mentioned as well. So you have conditions. With that, the Planning Commission recommended approval with the conditions. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any other questions for Dan?
One quick one. So they'll be able to put 4 different RAD centers, meaning 4 different providers on this if they needed to at 100 feet.
Yeah.
Did the landowner, the school district, sign off on this application?
Yeah. Mine.
Okay.
I don't have that right in front of me, but yes.
All right. I'm ready to make a motion then,
Just
Mayor.
one more question. Does our code cover the aviation lighting on these types of towers?
Not for the cell tower specifically, but they'll have to comply with any standards that, any kind of aviation standards. But
So if we're allowing it to be 100 feet, we
They
don't need
have-
to have that be in
they have
in
to
the
go
motion.
through communication, approval, and all those kinds of stuff, all those kinds of things. So, but our code doesn't specifically require that.
With it being down there by the airport, I just was
think-
curious. They put the condition on. Will you add that condition, sir?
Sure. I'm ready to make a motion. If there's any questions,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 8, which is ordinance, actually just a CUP for the new cell tower on approximately 4,000 square foot site located approximately 1001 East White Dome Drive, with the Planning Commission's conditions included in the motion, as well as the requirement that they provide red aviation notification lighting on the top of the tower.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Natalie. Roll call. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since we did a conditional use. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Here we are. I don't have any appointments. Reports, Steve.
No reports.
Stumble is moving forward. We've seen a lot of activity with earthwork this last couple of weeks. By the end of the month, you're gonna start to see some concrete poured, and it's gonna get really exciting for everybody. But we're on schedule.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, an hour ago, we did a life-saving award. Our police department did for 3 of our officers. All 3 of them saved people who had cardiac arrest. And it made me super emotional because I had that opportunity to be saved by someone a few years ago, and I just got lucky. And I got lucky because the person behind me knew how to do CPR and they acted fast. And that was the thing that stood out to me today as I was watching our officers. It made me so grateful that we invest in our officers and in their training. And they were all able to save people's lives because they were adequately trained. They knew how to jump right in and, do the thing that they needed to do without fear. And I think that we just need to remember how important it is for us to continue making sure that they have adequate training. And it's such a blessing. And it was just really neat to see these 3 people whose lives were saved. One of them was a very young father with 4 little girls. And interestingly, he was saved by one of our police officers and by our airport director who had been riding bicycles with him. And he collapsed and Dustin started doing CPR on him. And then one of our officers took over. So just wanted to share that. No reports.
Okay, I don't have any reports either. Oh, yeah, I better report that. We do have something coming up on Saturday. Obviously, we have our ribbon cutting, so remember that. We're starting at 11 with our little program out here, and then we will continuing with our Heritage Day celebration root beer floats at noon. So, hope to see you guys all there. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Okay.
We're gonna we're gonna sign the beam for the tower on Tuesday.
Yep.
And the public's invited to that.
That's next Tuesday. That is correct.
Out at the airport.
At the airport, beam signing. So, and that's most of the day, right? From till 4 o'clock.
If they want to see you, you have to be there at 10.
10 is a good time to be there.
But you can, I think
That's
it's
when
going
I'm
to
gonna
be
be
out there
there.
all day.
Yeah. So, do we have need for a closed meeting? Nice. Okay. We just need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Natalie, second by Steve. All in favor to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Yep. Motion carries unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.